A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-COLE credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. Welcome, Sam. How you doing?
Doing great, John. It's there's just so much going on. I think we should just dive right into it. And it's been a tough start to the week. Our hearts and our prayers go out to our brothers and sisters in the Austin Police Department who lost three incredible warriors. Don't need to go into the details, but three in a span of a bunch of hours. And they are grieving. They will get through this with a lot of help. But please, everybody, just say a prayer and to Austin, because they are dealing with a lot. And this is why we do what we do here every week and beyond with a badge of honor in the departments. And I know, John, you've been like internationally traveling.
Yeah, but also on top of Austin, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sam, but I got word today that Chicago had lost a firefighter as well in the line of duty. So our prayers go out to the Chicago Fire Department as well. It's in the current climate that we now have. It amazes me that these officers, these firefighters, these paramedics, these dispatchers, these frontline saviors are still out there doing the job after, we know that the stress levels beyond what me and you saw back years ago when politicians actually backed us up. They're doing a job with really no backup, no help from the politicians, and they continue to put their lives on the line and endure these traumas, both physically and mentally. And it warms my heart to know that these men and women are out there each and every day protecting us, and God bless them. And it just breaks my heart to see things like this happen.
Yeah. And you've like I said, you've been traveling internationally and talking to a lot of people in the law enforcement and the motorcycle world, which is everybody, but you've got law enforcement motorcycle clubs, you got veterans, you got firefighter, lots of different clubs, but an exclusive group of all of you on a cruise ship. They're crazy.
Sam,
but you did salute to service, which was awesome.
Sam, I did a show on Royal Caribbean on the High Seas Rally, and there had to be over 1,000 people in the room. And, there were veterans, first responders, and their families. And all I did was, I don't remember how I brought it up. I said, I believe in freedom. I believe in our Second Amendment. I just believed in our Second Amendment rights. Man, the crowd went crazy. They just cheered because they love freedom. And what we watch on the news, and we get disheartened and we say, oh my God, this is the way our country is, man. You just be in that room for 5 minutes with 1,000 other first responders and veterans, and you hear them cheer, and it was amazing. It really renews your faith in this world when you're around the like-minded people who still believe in what our forefathers fought for.
Sounds like they need to change it to High Seas Freedom Cruise. But that might attract some attention, or they might just
Yeah.
sell out that much
Yeah.
faster. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we are, tonight is part 2 of with our incredible guest from 220. If you didn't see part 1, it is you got to go back and start with episode 55. And that'll bring you up to speed, because we really want to get into the meat and potatoes of what these guys do and how they are healing. So without further ado, Dan Jarvis and Nick Davis from 220. Thanks
Welcome, guys.
guys so much for coming back on the podcast. It's great to see your faces.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
You bet. Like I said, you guys covered your bios on the last podcast, and since that time, I covered the last podcast where we got to work together. John really didn't get to go into his work with you all. So John, why don't you kind of set the tone, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Last podcast I was very skeptical, and when I think it was Dan, when you brought up that post-traumatic stress is curable, it's healable, and I was a little taken back, and I was like, you know what, I would love to see this happen. And what you guys from 220 did was you flew out to Texas in 2 days and said, you know what, hold my beer, I'm going to prove you wrong. And like I said, I was, I've been battling post-traumatic stress for a long time, longer than I even realized. And you guys proved me 100% wrong. I sat with Dan for, I think our first session, Dan, was about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, because you did the brain scan. And we sat, and it wasn't like EMDR at all. It wasn't something that where I reached back into my emotional treasure chest and started feeling all these different emotions. You did it in a way where I felt so comfortable, and it was a normal conversation. And you brought me back into these aspects that I was like, wow. And then you moved me forward, which I don't know how you did. It was like a chess, you were playing a game of chess with my mind, And after that first session, I was like, well, okay, I don't really feel any different. And then I slept okay that night. The second day I went back was a little bit more intense. We dug a little bit deeper, and you told me, you're like, well, you're going to sleep a long time and you're going to feel a little different. So just to recap, I was having anger issues. I have 3 rescue dogs, and they love me. They love my wife, and when I come home, they bark, and their barking goes through me. It never impacted me before, but it's been impacting me. And they're just happy, but it sparked something inside me. So I was starting to get angry and violent and losing my temper. And when you said you could fix that, I didn't believe it. So after about 2 days, after the therapy sessions, I come home, the dogs are going maniacal, barking, wagging their tails, but the bark. And I was just like, nothing, no anger. I just relaxed, and I started petting them, and I was like, holy crap. Right. That's a fluke. Maybe I'm just in a good mood, And then I'm sitting down, and my wife comes home, and the dogs go crazy again. And I'm like, I'm not feeling anything. This is weird. But since that session, I have not had an anger outburst. I have not felt stressed or out of place when the dogs go like that. So it 100% worked, cured, whatever way you want to say it, but it healed that portion of whatever trauma was triggering those issues.
So if I can interject, John, all I have to say is checkmate. Right? What happens, and a lot of people don't understand the root of trauma and emotion. So like the anger is a trigger. It didn't start with your dogs. It started way in the past. And you find those roots and you pull the weeds out. You pull that root out and the weed dies. when it's like an aha moment, right? So you go back to those early moments, you activate the emotion, which is just a whiff. You only need to get a little bit of a whiff of that onion. And then you do a framing exercise that inputs information that fills that hole where the emotion used to be. So now your brain is defaulting to the information over the emotions. And like trauma, I'm going to use for an example, yours, and I'm not going to discuss trauma because I don't even know what it was, but everyone's got different ways of representing images in their mind. And what I found interesting about yours is you couldn't see the pictures, right? Yours were colors. Well, guess what? That's an internal representation, and we can operate with anybody's internal representation. So if you see images, I had another former deputy who saw cloudy images. Well, we just created those cloudy images that represented those moments. And the brain knows where they are and they know where they're rooted. And we're able to go back to those moments and disconnect the emotion, disassociate the emotions out of the event, because it's the reactivity of the emotions that causes the problems. Once your nervous system gets active, you're in that triggered state, you go rage monster on the dogs and you're wanting to Hulk smash. It's because of the original emotion that was established maybe 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And all we do is we just go back and we find those pinnacle moments, activate the emotions, and then help your brain reprocess and release the emotions. It doesn't touch the memory. The memories don't go away. It's not like it's not memory extinction. We can't do that. I mean, that's not what this is, but what it is a disassociation of emotions, which allows the brain to reconsolidate. So
and this has a specific term, and we got to take our first break. We're going to discuss what that is called and go deeper into the awesome stuff you did with John. Yeah. Stay tuned, everybody.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal, medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical Bill of Rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. We are powered by the OBBM network, and we are our guests today, Nick Davis and Dan Jarvis with 22-0. We were discussing a little bit of my skepticism and how you guys changed my mind through some therapy programs. And I just wanted to recap with Sam and Nick. I don't know if you guys understood what he was talking about with the colors. You know, when we were doing the therapy session, and he asked if I could see images when I closed my eyes, I was unable to focus on certain aspects and images. I couldn't replay the pictures in my head. So what I would see is colors. And Dan, if you remember, when we hit a certain aspect of trauma, you asked me what color I was seeing. I was seeing like a deep red or cherry red. And then as we moved forward, it would turn into like a bluish green. And then it would by the end of the session, that topic we were talking about, the red was totally gone, and I saw green. And I never saw those colors before. Usually you close your eyes, you'll see black. And these colors were so vibrant that it was really uplifting, going, wow, he is really in there working on my brain just by this conversation. And when you brought it up, I was starting to get a little emotional again, man. I was starting to get teary-eyed because it really felt good to be in that place. You really put me in a tremendous place where I've never felt before.
See what you just said? I got to jump in on you. You just said I was starting to get emotional. Remember the first podcast where you're like, Nick, I see you getting emotional over there. That's what I was feeling. The
Right.
same thing, the
Yeah.
positive emotion. And you, my friend, are kind of the unicorn. It's a good thing you were working with Dan, because you're not easy subject matter with the level of difficulty of the colors you had going. So kudos to Dan on running you. I'll let you take it from there, Dan. But I wanted to say that and like,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's important. I have a tendency to get a little bit technical in the neuroscience part. Nick is a more of a make sense and simplify. So I want Nick to kind of interpret what I just kind of said so that the average person out there can understand it.
yeah. So listen, there's two. I got two dogs here, and I hear barking. My dogs are.
Everybody's going to bark here in a minute.
So the reality is, John, there's a couple of things. One is when you started talking, you brought up EMDR. You brought up how it really brought up that treasure chest, all the stuff, all the emotions. And the word, like I literally saw the word pop in my head. What we do is surgical, right? We're very surgical. We don't need to open up your whole chest cavity to work on your heart. We can go in very, very quietly, quickly behind the scenes, a little sniff of the emotions, and then Dan and I will take it the direction we need to. So if we go, this is trauma, like you're probably actually what Dan disconnected that you're really seeing, because I can relate. Dogs would trigger me. It's anger, rage, right? Now it could be linked to a trauma, but a lot of times when you turn off that anger, all of a sudden you're like, it's really weird. Right now, I'd normally be like, whoa, and there's nothing there. And there's a piece of you that almost wants to feel it. You're like, you know what?
You're used to it.
And it kind of felt good to explode in your own way, even if you're walking away. But what that does, though, is make you look like a jabroni when you're screaming at, a helpless dog or your kids, or in a group setting where you can't control it. So,
Right.
Dan, and we also want to be very, very, very clear with anybody listening that what we do is not therapy. Therapists do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? They're doing the cognitive behavioral therapy. They're helping you be better communicated. They're dealing with all kinds of stuff that Dan and I don't do. Now, I don't want to dismiss what we do, because what we do, I think, is pretty heavy lifting as well. Disconnecting people's trauma, anxiety, and negative emotions is definitely intense, right? That is, if we can get that out of the way, then the therapy can be a very good thing for you, your spouse, your kids, whoever it may be. And that's really where things have taken us. We have, in the last couple of weeks, we've had multiple psychologists call us, do a discovery call and say, hey, I've heard about you guys. I need you to fix my funk. And then we tell them about our training, and our training now is booked into next year, because therapists, pastoral counselors, and veterans and first responders, we are training. There is a cost to the training. And we can go over that at some point, and that could change down the road. So maybe the cost is a little bit irrelevant right now. You can call us for that. But the big key thing here is we know we can't heal everybody, right? We can't heal all of our brothers and sisters, but we can be a force multiplier. So the more people we can get trained, and Dan and I did that at the get-go. We were like, let's train all our veterans and first responders. So we were training people, and then they would disappear. It was like, oh, I got my funk fixed. Bye. And we're like, how do you not want it? And that's okay. Like, if that's all you want, just say that, come in, we'll fix your funk, and you move on. But we want people that, if you're going to put your money where your mouth is and you pay for the training, you can earn it back on the 22-0 side working with veterans and first responders. If you're a licensed
paying it forward too.
Yes.
And that's part of healing, getting the opportunity to do that. So I feel like we're like talking around the subject here. What is it called, and how do people train with you?
I did that on the cruise. I brought this not the therapy, but I may have said it was therapy, but I brought up 22-0. I brought up what you guys did, and I do a salute to service. I had about 40 veterans and first responders in there, and I was just telling them about the different aspects I went through. And last year, nobody really got up and spoke. They just listened. This year, 5 of them came up. They listened and they spoke, and they shared, and they broke down and they hugged, and it was amazing. It was amazing. Just speaking of your word on that cruise really helped so many.
Well, you're reinserting a little bit of hope in their lives, because so many men and women are struggling and they don't see a solution. The clinical world doesn't have the skills that we have. We've definitely built out something very special over the last 5.5 years. that for me it's life altering, it's life changing. So just by you sharing the story with them, you actually connected with them and gave them some hope back. And that's powerful, because you just got to get them to do one more day, get in and do one more session. Because for us, it's all about rapport. The ability to get into rapport with the person, to get them to trust us to do the work, is all we need. Because the reality is, they don't have to believe in the process. They really don't. As long as they do the visuals as we instruct the brains and guide them, the brain does it automatically. You know, we use the terminology of healing the hero. The reason why we don't use cure is cure indicates an illness or a disorder or something, disease. We look at it as an injury. You know, something happened where something traumatic occurred. Look at the cops and the first responders. Was it Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department had 4 suicides in 2 days?
Yep.
Right. That's just, it's crazy.
That's
right?
preventable.
It's preventable. It's like, I get so frustrated when we know what we can do and we don't have the ability to get to everybody. Like Chicago has a massive suicide problem. You know, the U.S. Border Patrol has a suicide problem, you know, because they have a lot of veterans at work, you know, because we have a lot of veterans coming out and working in law enforcement, probably more so in law enforcement services than fire services.
Sam, oh, sorry, Dan. I thought you were pausing there. I want to just go back to Sam real quick on your point. You were asking specifically, how do you engage with us on the training? Is that
what is this training protocol called, so people can be like, oh.
Go ahead and hit on that, Dan.
So for law enforcement, veterans, first responders, we call it Tactical Resiliency Training, right? Because you have the ability to utilize these in the field. And that consists of the Trauma Resiliency Protocol for PTS and for acute stress, and then the emotions management process for those rooted emotional triggers. So what will happen is somebody would engage with us, and then once all of the appropriate paperwork and documentation is done, they'll get an online self-paced work. They'll get probably 4 to 5 hours of self-paced work, which is all the academic stuff that we don't really want to go over in the training. And then we go right into the training where it's 2 days. First day is all the trauma work. Second day is all the emotions work. And by the time they're done, they're floating out of there.
And it's all remote. So we can do in-person training, but it's got to be 20 or more people in a class. So if it's remote, it can be at the comfort of your home. We're scheduling it. We're working on getting our schedule on our website. But if you go to anxietyguys.com, because all the training goes through our For Civilian site, but go to anxietyguys.com. You can book a discovery call with Dan or I, so we can give you a little bit more details, a little more behind the scenes. But then once you're in, it's an NDA, it's a invoice, and then you get access to our training platform, and then we're in the class and we're rocking and rolling. So you're getting to go through the process, like Dan said, and you're getting trained in it. And the last piece, Sam, before you go to breaks, I know you're itching to do that probably, but is the
he's watching the clock. See, somebody.
I'm actually not. I can just feel it.
Okay.
But the
feel the vibe.
There's a lot of entities and people out there that do resiliency. And when I hear resiliency, I think, oh, you're going to give me this coping mechanism or this skill that I'll have to keep using day after day. Our processes help you build tremendous resiliency, but what they do is actually disconnect. They disconnect the emotions from the trauma. They put things back where they're supposed to be. Your brain just had a hitch in the giddy up. We help you we allow you to overcome the solution to your problem with what we do. So it's quick, it's effective, and we're talking usually 2 to 4 sessions. So there's resiliency in there, but I just want people to know it's different than your typical resiliency training where it's like, oh, I learned this stuff in class and now I got to go meditate. It's not that. You're going to have the tools to disconnect what's bugging you.
Right.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with meditation either. That's another tool in your toolbox, but we do have to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to put up the banner for Anxiety Guys. Stay tuned, everybody.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance you'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor, powered by the OBBM Network with John and Sam. We have
a special guest in the studio,
Nick and Dan. I just wanted to bring my wife on, Tara, to introduce to Nick and Dan, but to get a testimonial from an outside source who has seen my anxiety, my rage with the dogs, and how after just 2 sessions with Dan, it's changed. Right or wrong?
180 degrees. I need to tell you though, you can tell after all the craziness we've been through the last 2 weeks, we're going on the cruise, coming back. It's almost like it's wearing off. Does that make sense? It's not anything like it used to be, but he needs to finish. And I've told him that since we've been home. Please make arrangements. Get the hell out of here for the weekend. Go do what you need to do, because I can't tell you how different he would say to me, I can't believe the dogs are going crazy. And I'm not triggered. I was like, okay, can we have this man live with us?
Well, through a screen that can be, arranged.
Live with us. Like, have coffee with us in the morning, and then we'll let you go.
I'll work for food.
There we go.
So
I love you. Thank you for all you do. This is by far the best treatment he's had in the last 2 decades we've been together.
Yeah.
It really is something to it. There is something to it.
Thank you.
Keep doing your good work, guys.
Love it.
Thank you.
You're worth it. Thanks.
Yep.
Love it. So I put anxietyguys.com as we went off to break. For those of you who are listening, it's anxietyguys.com. And you are asking people to go to that website to reach you to be able to schedule, right?
Yeah, they have our Calendly. So if you go in there and schedule a discovery call, it saves all the back and forth emails. It's just like, boom, you're on our calendar. We get on a Zoom and we chat, and it makes life easy. I wanted to hit on something, before you went to break, I brought up meditation. I'm not trying to go against any other modality or what people are doing. What I'm getting at is what we do is very different. I'm just trying to articulate the difference there, because I used to think meditation was crazy, to be honest with you, until I did some breath work and meditation that actually was like, holy cow, I was floating. So definitely
It's another tool.
Yep.
Well, it's also a maintenance program too. Meditation
Right.
helps you to maintain and keep that kind of that calm or that zen. But John, a little bit about what your wife was saying. You and I did 2 sessions, right? We recommend that most people do 3 to 4, right? You're
Right.
probably a good halfway through the work.
I'm going to come out to you and get the finished product,
Yeah.
because I want to discuss the brain mapping that you guys did. And you shocked me when I was like, well, what color is my brain supposed to be?
Right.
And because I've never had a brain scan before, but we identified 2 TBIs, and that my brain was, I think, blue, right? And it's supposed to be green.
Yeah, there's I'm not the expert on that. That's probably a conversation for you and Dr. David Hagedorn. So when you do come out and do the follow-up brain scan, you're going to have a one-on-one consultation with him and let him go over the neuroscience behind it, because he's he's board certified neuropsychologist. So he's at the top of his game. And but it's interesting though, because if you want to see what normal looks like as far as brain scans, you got to look at Nick's brain scan. Mine had more problems than a math book, but I'm working on it.
Pac-Man.
Oh, yeah.
The funny thing was, my wife got brain mapped, and when you are around us, she's like the calm, reserved, got a doctorate. Like, the girl's brilliant. She's beautiful. She works out. Her brain heart has more issues than Dan and I's put together. But they identified some stuff that could be really detrimental to her, to include stroke or heart attack, especially if she lets stuff go. And then my son Dr. Hagedorn goes, let me guess, your son is always moving around. He can't sit still, and he doesn't listen really well. And I'm like, have you been living in my house? So he's like, yeah, your kid would normally be, I don't know if he said this, but basically it was like, my kid's the kid that a lot of therapists might diagnose as ADD, right? Or ADHD. Did the brain map on Fisher, and Dr. Hagedorn goes, see this part in his brain right across here? It's operating at a low frequency. So when Fisher is doing all this stuff and he's moving around and we're yelling at him to sit still, he's moving. He's instinctually learned to move, because that activates the part of the brain and brings it up, which allows him to focus. So basically I'm like, focus, but stop focusing, damn it. It's like, what do you want me to do? So
it's confusing.
but that can be fixed. He's like,
Right.
with neurofeedback, you can change that in a month, which we're just getting ready to start doing with Fisher. But the poor kid, I'm getting frustrated with him. Sit still. You're not listening. Well, he couldn't help it. Right. It's not because he's got some major issue. It's just, he's operating a little lower frequency there. Sam, I got something. Go ahead.
Once you know, you
I was
know.
gonna say, and so many, and this is where I love what you guys do, because so many clinicians or therapists or doctors are so quick to just throw medication at a child and throw them on prescription drugs, just to, when a few counseling sessions or knowledge, more knowledge is power, they say, and having the parents learn about this, you can do it with just speaking with your child instead of throwing or changing what you do instead of throwing medication at kids.
Well, the problem is education, right? You're getting an education lesson talking to Dan and I, and what we've learned over the past 5 years. Vast majority of the world has no clue about what we do. It's very novel. It's non-clinical intervention, and we're learning about the brain science along with what we're doing, because we're trying to bring the full picture of our end of things. And we learned we can disconnect trauma, we can disconnect negative emotions, but you could have somebody, you might have hormonal issues. Like we have a friend whose brain light was blue and he's flatline, no emotions, but it can be other stuff. So then you do deeper testing. But the problem is, if we need to go to the root, like let's get down to baseline. Oh, you're acting this way, let's give you a pill. No, it should be why. Okay, well, in order to do that, your insurance might not cover it, but we should do a brain map, or we should do X, Y, or Z. It's a little off topic, but Sam, I was hoping that you and John would let me share something, because it's going to give you a giggle. And with this community, I have a guy. Go ahead.
We can do that. We got to take another break. We'll come back and you can make us all laugh. I promise.
It'll be a wow laugh. You'll like it.
Okay. Stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned to be wowed with laughter.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. We have Nick Davis and Dan Jarvis with 22-0, and we're discussing brain mapping. We're discussing the ways you can heal from post-traumatic stress in ways that you'd never even thought of. I gave my testimony in the beginning of the show, and it is an amazing workshop that doesn't take a lot at all. So if you missed the first part of the show, definitely hit the replay button on this after the show. But I know, Nick, you were bringing up something that's going to make us giggle, and we want to hear it because we like to giggle.
Well, for everybody out there that's worn the uniform, especially our first responders, I think the veterans will all love this too, because a lot of us vets end up as first responders. Dan and I worked with a deputy fire,
chief deputy fire marshal.
Okay, and he referred a friend to us, and I'm not going to name any names, but his friend, let's just say, his friend has 48 years between police, fire, and EMS, and he's a fire chief. Dude was, let's just say, when it comes to anger, he had the trophy and was wearing the badge with the anger rage. So I'm on my way home. I give him a call just to chat, right? And usually, like in that situation, hey, what's that one emotion? He's like, oh, anger. And I was like, yeah, where did that start for you? And he's like, when I was 30. Now, normally Dan and I are like, we probably can find somewhere where you were angry before 30, but he was adamant, 30. So I was like, let's roll with it. So I was like, where is it on a scale of 0 to 10? He's like, it's at the moon right now. It's like through the roof. It's always there. And I was like, okay, I don't know what he's working on, right? which I will share later because it's not overly graphic. But so he's like, dude, it's through the roof. I do the EMP process while I'm driving with my kids. I'm on headphones, but I got my kids, my wife, and 3 dogs in the truck. We're driving. Disconnect his anger. I'm like, go back and look at that event. Can you still feel it? He's like, this is really weird, right? So he texts me, how about this? I walked into the lounge. One of the guys said, Chief, what are you up to? I asked why. He said, because you're actually smiling for once. This is just after anger. And I said, you're going to hear a lot of that. Many people are going to notice your shift. Next day, we did his 1 session, right? That's all we've done so far is 1 session. He texts me the next morning, Nick, good morning. 4 things. 1, I slept great. 2, you were right about some odd dreams. 3, this is the best. I got up this morning, I got showered, and I said to myself, this must be how Scrooge felt when he woke up that Christmas morning. I called a friend this morning, and the first thing he said to me is, man, you sound great. You must be feeling good. So I love it. We hear this all the time. I ask him if I can share it. He goes, absolutely. He says, I'm looking forward to the tune-up. So then he texts me out of the blue the next day or 2 days later, Nick, I need to share this with you. This is really good. Probably shouldn't share it, but I gotta share this with you. I was in my office last night. One of the young guys knocked and opened the door and said, hey, I drew the short straw. I have to ask you something. He goes, I said, shoot. He goes, the guys want to know if you're getting laid or you're medicated. He goes, I busted out laughing and said, well, I'm not medicated. And I told him, I said, Chief, you're not my type. But anyhow, as we were getting on this podcast, I said, how you holding up? He goes, Nick, I got to tell you, I'm good. He goes, I met with a buddy Saturday night for wings. We were sitting here and he goes, what's up? I said, what do you mean? He goes, I was dreading to come out because you've been such a drag. You are a different person. I was wondering, he was wondering what the bitch was going to be tonight. I told him I can't explain what happened, but I can tell him how it happened. So 48 years, fire department, this guy's whole life is changed. And that was 1 session. He wasn't nearly as difficult as you, John. You must have been in the Army prior or something, but
No. But what you Christmas future, yeah. And when people will look at you different. I mean, I've had my son-in-law, I've had people, look at me and go, wow, you're enjoying. And for the first time, I am enjoying things. Even watching the grandkids play, I'm learning to feel that enjoyment again. Instead of just faking it and going, yeah, that's cute. Now I'm actually happy going, wow, I'm blessed. It brings enjoyment back in your life, which is something that, I got to learn to know how to use because I never had it before. It was weird.
That's the crazy part is when you have all those negative emotions and traumatic emotions, that numb feeling we get, your inability to feel the good emotions. Our bodies, because it's safer, it's easier. We don't want to deal with it. When you get all the bad stuff out of the way, all of a sudden, I remember one time calling Nick and I'm like, man, I didn't know somebody could feel this good and it'd be legal, right? That's just the way it is when you have nothing but a lifetime of like bad emotions. But
yeah, and it's amazing what can cause that though. Like that fire chief, his anger, he told me later, I told him like, I don't want to hear it. I don't need to hear it. He goes, dude, a family got smoked by a drunk driver on Christmas Day. He goes, that day I knew what hate was. And I've felt it every day since I was 30 years old. Wow. One event, right? Now, it wasn't necessarily traumatic for him, but that emotion rooted. And for 30 years, he's been terrorizing his family, friends, his guys working underneath him, not because he wants to, but because it's just there and he can't get rid of it. It got stuck.
That shield goes up because you can't show emotion while you're on that job. So you go to that fire scene or that accident scene, and you can't break down and cry. You're a chief, or that manly thing. You can't break down and cry. So your shields go up, and like you said, they get locked in place. So you can't differentiate the difference between the trauma that was out on the street. Now your shield is up when you go home in your normal daily life. Right. You keep that shield up because you don't know when that next shoe is going to drop, and it's scary.
And this is a perfect segue. I'm going to put up the 22-0 banner. Guys, if you're listening to this, it's the number 22 and 0 spelled out .org. So 220.org. All of your social media handles are on that webpage. Go and subscribe and follow, because this story, I was following it on LinkedIn. You guys shared about this fire chief a little bit and his work with you, obviously not to this in depth. And it is just absolutely amazing. These are the kind of things between what they share, what you guys share on your different social media handles, but also the testimonials that you have on the website. So jump on over there, folks. Again, if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, it's the number 22 and 0 all spelled out .org. So you want to go there. That is phenomenal. And the word that kept resonating with me as Nick, you were telling this story and reading off the text, was freedom. Yep. For the first time, this guy in 30 years is free from the anger that he took at that scene and just put on his heart.
Yeah, he had a lot of trauma too. He had childhood stuff. That's the thing. Most of us have the childhood trauma. Even if it's not the biggest trauma or the worst trauma, it starts there. And we just give you that clean slate to operate from. And once you got that clean slate, you can start becoming the best version of yourself. You know, that's our local church that we've been at. We're talking to our local pastor, and we've trained some, Dan's done the first couple trainings with the pastoral counselors, just a plug for them. We have a protocol that we call the Jesus protocol that will allow people that are of faith to go through the process from framing that is all biblical. I won't go deep into the weeds on that, but let's just say it's very impactful. And our pastoral counselors are, Dan's getting blown up on the text messages. It's like, you wouldn't believe it. I just worked with this person. And this has happened. And we're like 5 years, we've been hearing this. And this is where we get frustrated, is like, we literally have the way to go sit down, and in a few hours worth of work, you're smiling and you're happy. And for the first 5 years, we were doing nothing but giving it away. Now we're charging on the civilian side. But if you're a pastoral counselor, or you're a member of a church, you know that you can believe in God, but still carry guilt, still carry shame, trigger to anger quickly. Doesn't mean that you don't have faith. And I get that. Like, a lot of people say God heals. Some of my closest friends are so far that direction that they don't want to hear anything else. And I'm like, it's kind of that old analogy. Guy's drowning and he says, no, I'm good. I don't need a helicopter. I don't need a boat. And then he drowns, and God's like, you idiot, I sent you a boat and a helicopter. Right. I think God is using us to heal others. And if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Our process isn't faith healing. However, if you are a person of faith, or you're a pastoral counselor, we have created the process that will allow you to do it all from the faith end of the spectrum. And it's amazing how rapid am I wrong, Dan? Like, how fast does it happen for the believers?
The faith model is so much faster because they have a higher authority. That's God. You know, they believe, you know, in their biblical upbringing and their education. And when they do the reframes, and it's like a Bible verse, you know, say somebody with anger, and you have them activate it, and then you disassociate them. And then I always kind of quote the verse, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. And then you ask the question, how many sunsets have there been since you're 7? And their eyes will light up. And that's the aha moment. And the next thing you know, they felt the anger just dissipate and leave.
And you know what, Dan and I we're going to do this. This is going to happen. I'm looking for a pastor that will allow me to come up on stage with them. We could EMP the majority of the crowd on anger, shame, guilt, hurt, and sadness by using the biblical, because everybody in the room believes in God. They're all there. Right? We're all there. We can do the framing, trigger everybody, and run the process and disconnect it for everyone. And talk about, I want to use our home church as a model, but it's like, let's roll, man. Like, let's start setting people free. Obviously, we want to do it on the veteran and first responder side. I wear my faith on my arm. I got sick of hiding it because I was worried it might offend. Like, you know what? I love all people. You be you, I'll be me. And that it doesn't require the faith healing, but I'm not going to not talk about it, because there are a lot of us out there that believe. And this is something that we've tied into our community, and it's something Dan and I feel very strongly about. So,
I think you just put out the all call. So if you're in a pastor role, or if this maybe you're somebody that goes to church that you want to bring it to your pastor, definitely reach out. We got to take our last break. We will be right back.
To the Health Engineer Show. I'm Cliff Buckley, the Health Engineer, right here on the Offbeat.
Hi, I'm Larry Cortampa.
Hi, my name is Susan Hamilton, and you're watching Offbeat.
Hi, this is Doreen Milano.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. We have 22-0, Nick Davis and Dan Jarvis. And that OBBM cup of coffee looks so good right now. It's just so clear on the screen. I'm like, I just want to grab it. Man, this has been very impactful. And Nick, you just brought up the faith-based type of way of healing in a different way. But I don't know if this is going to come out right, because I'm thinking generational. Now, you guys have done a lot of different, a wide variety of first responders and veterans, all of different backgrounds and ages. You know, some of us come from the suck it up era, and you know, some are new young officers or first responders. Do you see, or are you taking any statistics on the trauma based between them both? Do you see a connection? Do you see differences between, you know, the 30 plus years ago to like the 5 year and under?
So I'll speak a little bit to that. One of the most difficult groups we've had the ability to get into is that Vietnam era generation, right? They came back to a country that was spitting on them and cursing them and humiliating them. So there's a big trust gap with the Vietnam vets. Nick and I have both worked with Vietnam vets very successfully, right? As long as we get a one-on-one conversation with them, rapport is relatively easy to develop, because generationally, we still walked in the same boots, right? I did combat. I worked with a combat Marine from Vietnam not too long ago. I did 2 sessions with him. The guy went from sleeping 2 hours a night to, how do I help? Right? You know, that's the reality of it. Generationally, the younger generation is definitely more in tune with mental health. There's a lot less stigma in the younger groups. I'm in the same generation of you, John, the suck it up, you know, drive on, take a knee, drink some water, whatever we do. And I've been guilty of saying that to soldiers while on active service, you know. Yeah. And I, you know, it's like, somebody's got to do something different. We got to change the conversation. We got to break the stigma, because the reality is, if you could be traumatized very quickly, why can't you be untraumatized just as quickly?
And
makes sense.
And to what Dan's saying, John, the generational thing. How much? Like maybe don't even tell me. But when you get to our ages, it's like, okay, I've been through therapy. I've tried this. I've tried that. You've opened up the wounds. You've closed them back up. You open them up. You close them back up. So there's a lot of Vietnam era vets, or the few left remaining World War II vets. I'd say they're even the silent generation. But the Vietnam guys have tried. They've tried medication. They've tried therapy. And it's like, I'm done trying, because every time I try, I feel like I get worse or something happens. We understand that. And that's where the rapport, like Dan was saying, is big. Because if we can get with you and you can truly understand that this is not therapy, we're not going to open up those wounds. We're going to be very surgical, and you're going to sleep good. You're going to sleep great. You're going to start smiling.
Well, what I'm saying,
John and I have both been through,
been
through what you guys are talking about, and it's absolutely, you are not opening. John refers to it as Pandora's box. You're not going back. You're not taking people back to relive that trauma. 100%. It's very surface. It's a different conversation, but you come out going,
"What just happened?"
Right.
Yeah.
What had happened was
the coping mechanism, the coping skills from 20 and 30 years ago to now, with the newer generation, the way they react to things is you know, apples and oranges, you know. And I want to say we've moved forward within our first responder and military, that we're a little bit more pro mental health, not where we should be, but we are better than we used to be. I got to say that. So do you see an aspect where we're on an up road where things are starting to change, or?
Yeah. So I think we are starting to see a little bit of a shift, because everybody's looking at the landscape of the first responder world, and you can't keep police officers. You can't keep firefighters. They're average of them. They're timing out in about 5 years, right? Because of the emotional stress that they have to go through on the job. One of the problems is right now, the people sitting at the top, John, is our generation, right? Our age group, right? The guys that say rub dirt on it, who don't necessarily believe that there's a problem, because the moment you say PTSD and it's a police chief or a sheriff, liability is the first thing they think of.
Right.
we got to get this guy off the street. We can't have him out there, and then you'd isolate him even further. And then we wonder why they're checking out the way they are. Right. That was my problem when I was a non-commissioned officer in the Army. I was a squad leader. Where do I go for help? Right. I know what my bosses think about PTS. I knew that there was a problem, but suicide became the better option. And that's got to change. That conversation's got to change. The beauty is if you're out there and you run a peer support program or a wellness program at a department, I would just suggest that you go to 220 and vet the process for yourself. Just go through the process and get worked on or worked with another peer coach or Nick or myself directly. Feel it. You'll know it's real when you feel it.
It's true.
And we can prove it. I went to a conference with Dr. Arnell, our executive director for the Florida Association of Hostage Negotiators. And we got 2 blocks of instructions. So we got about 200 out of 300 cops came through. Got classes on PTS, anxiety, depression, stress of the job. And then I said, all right, I need a volunteer. Who wants to come up here and break up with a real world traumatic experience? John, you and I both know cops. Crickets. Nobody wanted to take me up on it. I'm going to use a little bit of foul language. I said, all right, who wants to come up here and prove that I'm full of shit? And 10 hands go up, right? I'll show this guy. And I got one to come up and he went through it and he was like, whoa, what was that? Right. And that happened in both of those segments. As a result of that, 25 of the cops at that conference sat with myself or Dr. Pam Arnell during that week. They actually.
Well, that is amazing. I'm sorry. Again, this hour flew by. I've had the website up the entire, when you're speaking. Get connected, 220.org, or you can go to anxietyguys.com and get on their calendar. That's where the Calendly is for Dan and Nick. We want to thank you guys so much for coming back on. You continue to open my eyes. And as I read your LinkedIn posts and everything on social media, please go connect with them so you can read the success stories as well. Just can't thank you enough for what you do in healing our heroes out there. And, I'll be back in touch, and I know John will too, to finish out what we started. And just all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
And once again, here's a true testimonial from somebody 30 plus years of trauma dating back to childhood. 2 sessions so far have really stopped a lot of my anger issues. Sleeping better. I am having dreams now, which I've never had before, which is weird. So you've definitely provided that healing aspect. I know I have a couple more sessions to go through with you, Dan, and I'm going to fly out soon. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to getting on that path to recovery, because learning to enjoy, man, we only spin on this marble one time, right? We might as well enjoy it. We can't live our life within ourselves from traumas that we know that we can fix, right? So you guys definitely provided that enjoyment aspect for someone to really get on with their life and enjoy this crazy world.
Yeah, but you guys are doing it. John, you and Sam are bringing it to people. Your podcast is awesome. I've been picking up different episodes. What you guys are doing is you're getting in the trenches with us. Yep. We're shoulder to shoulder. Nobody's above anybody, and we're working on a common problem. We're a piece of the bigger puzzle, and we want to get our piece to the world so that people can start enjoying all the other stuff out there. But we appreciate everything you guys do, your support and bringing us on, because without you bringing us on, our voice is not as wide reaching. So thank you.
Oh, amen to that. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll catch up with you soon.
Sounds
good.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
God bless.
God bless. Bye.
That was amazing. Just to go through a bunch of things, please just watch this episode. Actually, go back to 55, start there, then come back here. If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe. We're bringing you incredible healing content every single week, and we appreciate those that have already done that. You can also follow us on our social media handles. The easiest way to find out where we are is to go to abadgeofhonor.org. Just follow us on every social media handle, because you'll see Dan, you'll see this episode, you'll see Nick and everybody all of our guests that we have on and their amazing work that they're doing. Hey, this Wednesday, Patriots Pour out at Siren Rock Brewing Company in Rockwall, Texas. Who is Patriots Pour? They are a group of veterans and first responders that get together every single Wednesday starting at 4 p.m. and they give back to nonprofits in the area. Patriots Pour chose a badge of honor for their November to be the November beneficiary. So please come out, show your support for Patriots Pour, show your support for a badge of honor, which means you're showing your support for the first responders right here in that area. Your $2, I promise you, and John promises you, will go very far, because that's all we're asking for. We've got Giving Tuesday coming up on November 28th, so get ready to see some posts about that. And our partners and our friends over at the Peace Officers Angels Foundation, they have their Christmas Angel program going on right now. So you can jump over to POAF.org and check out that. That's Peace Officers Angels Foundation.
Yeah.
And
they have their thing coming up on December 2nd. They have their Christmas gala coming up too. And I think
you can go on to POAF.org and get all that information. We've got our workshop coming up for first responders here locally. You can go to abadgeofhonor.org, click on the calendar. It is this Friday, December 1st. Get yourself registered. Wow, John, take us home.
Man, all right. Well, I just want to thank Nick and Dan from 220 once again. When you talk about life-saving modalities and things that really can change, they are the go-to. I never thought I would say that. Healing, there's a chance of healing, but yeah, there is. And, you just keep working on it. So, man, I usually end with, if you could be anything, just be kind. If you can be anything and you're battling, go to 220, because that's the path you need to try right now.
Till next week, everybody. Take care.
Peace.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.